All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Cathode Ray Podcast number 43. While Steve is out on sick leave, he's been a little bit under the weather in the hospital. I'm here with my friend, the 8-bit Esquire Rogers, stepping in, subbing in for Steve. How you doing, mate?
It's not even 5 a.m., so I'm doing about as well as you can expect. So, but I got my coffee. I'm good to go, man, and thanks for having me on.
It's all good. We got that. So, yeah, it's been ages. So let's quickly just go for Steve's update and so forth. So it was about Monday last week, and I want to record with Steve, and then he's like, I can't. The kid's got the flu. And it's always these bullshit excuses with Steve. The kid's got the flu. Whatever. My balcony, my basement is full of water. Whatever.
Coming from a guy without a basement or without children, okay, fucker.
So he's always got such excuses, whatever. And then the next day he's like, he's got it, and then he's got it, and, he kind of progressed on. And then he was in the hospital later. I don't know. I only saw those photos that he sent. I don't know anything more about what happened to him. But he's out of the hospital now, as I understand.
Yes. Yeah, well, without getting into... You see, in the United States, we have this thing called HIPAA, so we can't talk... which is so you can't talk about other people's health issues unless they give you...
Is that only for medical professionals or for anybody?
So, I believe it... Well, it covers medical professionals. I know about this because I do a little bit of that regulatory work. So it's medical professionals and their business partners, so insurance companies, pharmacies, all of that kind of stuff. So they can't disclose it without your authorization. But anyway, Steve's heart was fucked up. That's that's the inside scoop. And but he's feeling better, which is great. And he's back home with his family. So
it's nice. And from my socialistic, communistic European perspective, my first thought was, dude, have you got enough to pay for this? How much is all this going to cost?
Well, yeah.
He's got health insurance, I'm told. He's fine. We don't have to start the GoFundMe.
Well, if you have health insurance, that doesn't mean shit in this country. You could have, but yeah, hopefully it's not going to break the bank. But he'll need a couple more 2530s to fix, I guess, to cover that deductible.
Yeah, right. So if you'd like to sign up for Steve's Patreon right now,
right.
You could. He said he's all right. He said he's covered and things are okay, and he wasn't worried about that money thing. So I
could do the rest of the show as Steve if you'd like. I can. Hey, Lewis, it's good to see you, man. Hey, today we're going to talk about convergence, and with convergence, that's when the red and the green and the blue converge to make white. Now, sometimes here, if you see in the corner here of this PVM, you just put here this little convergence strip, and now that corrects the... That's my Steve, sorry.
That's nice. That's so super hillbilly.
It's not, but you know what? It's not hillbilly. It's like, because hillbilly is, the government says I can't drink and drive. What are we, China? Like, that's hillbilly, right?
Right.
Steve is like... It's so calming, and I got a critter in my garage today, and I'm going to go sniff around here and try to find it. And it's just, like, I could put his channel on and just fall asleep on it. Like, if I didn't have fucking kids that are, like, constantly at me, I could just lay on the couch and just watch Steve's thing and just kind of pass out while he's, replacing caps on a motherboard, He's just so soothing, and it's... That's a good Southern drawl, not the twangy kind, but I love Steve's voice. Yeah,
and that's how he gets through those 20-minute videos on what's going on the inside of a CRT, what's going on in the CV.
Yeah, man.
Just listen.
No, I love Steve. He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah, he's all right. So what about now? As I understood, am I allowed to reveal? What about you and your video?
Oh yeah. There's no creation going on right now. It's me. So I'm Lewis. I'm in the middle of a midlife crisis. Okay, I'm
no shit with that collection behind you.
Yeah, right.
Gee, who would have guessed?
Yeah. No, I'm staring 40 dead in the face. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's make a YouTube channel. So I've invested a little bit of, not a lot of money, a little bit of money into just some proper lighting, a proper microphone. I don't have that shitty $12 lav mic that I was using before.
That shitty retro RGB hoodie instead, but yeah.
Oh, this is comfy, man. Oh, no, I posted about this It's I don't know who Bob's, whoever he's contracted out with making his shit, but like this sweatshirt is so soft, and I sleep in it all the time. I love this thing. For the low price of $39.99 US, you too can have a retro RGB hoodie. Anyways, Bob.
Sorry, yes, you'll collect. Yeah,
send me a check, please, Bob. So I'm gonna start a YouTube channel, and I've got a show worked out. You, my friend, will be a guest on my show, cool. and I hope I branch out to other projects. I'd like to do like long form interviews and things like this with people I admire in the community. So the hardest part is everybody's hardest part. It's just sitting down and producing, and just finding the time to film and edit and all that stuff. So it's taken me a little longer than I expected, but that's how it always goes, I guess.
It's okay. Finding routines is hard. Finding that. I've been back for about a week now, and from my trip, and I have had no motivation for any of this. I've got like 10 videos in Japan filmed. They're literally all I need to do is make a voiceover, but I haven't got to that. And I spent a lot of time filming another video, which is explaining how I go to hard-offs and explaining the process of navigating them and finding them and what to do, which I will be getting a proper video editor in, because I don't think my crappy Final Cut experience can do that video justice. So yeah, I was a bit like leaning my motivation on Steve, like, yeah, Steve will do a podcast that'll kickstart me again, and then it ends up in the hospital.
Right.
So we'll kickstart it with this one, and I got a few ideas. But yeah, that motivation, that keeping to the schedule, I'm getting there with as well. Comes and goes.
Well, it's not just motivation. That's the thing is, like, I have a lot of creative juices, and I don't have an outlet for it, really. I mean, that's where my Twitter comes in. Like, a lot of people follow me on Twitter, and I love all the followers, but I never really created my Twitter account to gain followers. I could give a shit less if anybody liked my jokes or not. It's just I just needed somewhere to tell jokes because my wife doesn't think I'm funny. So I had to, and I have a lot of other ideas that I'd like to do, like, and I think I see the YouTube Shorts now are really being promoted by YouTube, and I've got a lot of ideas just for little skits and things like that I'd love to do, and so I just need to do it. I don't care if anybody watches it. I just want to do it, I just want to put it out there. And if people like it, that's great. If they don't, that's great too. I mean, whatever. But
I think it's good. Your video is also quite, as you told, I won't give away your concept yet, but it was entertaining. It's not just like, hey, here's the information that I'm telling you to the camera as a YouTuber, right. But like there's a little concept and it's entertaining. And I like that part. I struggle to make mine entertaining sometimes. Like it's always just like information. Well, yeah, but yours is always like, oddball information that it's like, wow, I have no interest in that. Like, I don't care about the lag on this projector, but it's really cool. Like, now I've learned something, that I wouldn't have thought to go look for myself. So that's what yours is really unique, which is what I like. Plus all this hard off stuff, like, man, Lewis, if I were you, and if I was in your circumstance, I would be out of my apartment right now. I would have lost my lease. I would have been kicked out. I wouldn't have made rent. I would have been bankrupt. I would have had to sell blood on the side and other bodily fluids. Like, I would spend so much goddamn money in Japan. Like just the photos you would send me, just like, hey man, what do you think of this? Oh, take a look at this. I'm like, I would buy all that shit, and I would just figure out how to ship it home later. Like it's absurd the amount of cool stuff they have out there. It's nuts. And look, we've all got to stick to our own budget as well. So for me, right. I spent a lot. Also, I find myself when I'm there, it's different. Because you are coming from a position of scarcity in right. the market, where right. you go to a position of abundance, let's say, and all your perspective changes when things are abundant and around. That FOMO isn't there anymore. Oh, no, I'll find that controller next week or right. whatever. So that, and after a while, even though, especially in my final days, I was there thinking like, bro, I've got the abundance mentality. I'm like, oh, I've spent so much money. But I think to myself, dude, as soon as you get back, you'll be like, oh, wish I'd bought that. Oh, wish I'd got
right.
that. Wish I'd got that thing.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember what. Number one, it was all the CRTs that you would find, like a surprising amount of CRTs, and
Very
even
surprising amount.
and even just computer monitors. I mean, you could get away with getting a 13-inch computer monitor. I mean, trying to get it home is half the battle, but and for pretty discounted prices. I mean, you were finding complete brand new inbox Famicoms for what?
Like those can range like a Famicom, actual original with the attached controllers that don't detach,
right?
Sort of thing. That can, I mean, if you look around, you can still get one in the junk bin for 500 yen, and
it's crazy.
I'm pretty sure it'll work. And there'll be like 8 in the junk bin that are all yellowed and all of that, but there'll always be one white one. For some reason, there's one albino that hasn't. So you can do that, or you can get a boxed one, and you could spend, let's just say boxed original Famicom in the big one, maybe 50, 60, 70, something like that bucks. AV Famicom in box is going to go more like 120 these days. Not so many junk AV Famicoms around, but they're definitely there. And
But AV Famicom, come on, that's not a real Famicom.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
the one I.
Well, no. Where's the romance in an AV Famicom? There's no. It's too easy. It's like going to doggy obedience school and you've got a golden retriever. It's like, and everybody's like, oh wow, your dog's so well behaved. It's like, yeah, it's a fucking golden retriever. Where's like show up with a Jack Russell Terrier. That's the Famicom, right? Because that fucker's got RF only, and you've got to figure out a way to get RF into your setup somehow, But no, AV.
So take us
Famicom's
through
fine.
again you with your RF. Now you had to do the channel mod on the back of that. So
it's funny. So
walk us through the way the channels work, because it's very interesting for me, the idea of channels. Because in Australia, when we were tuning RF, we didn't really know channels. I just tuned it, like it was just. Tune it until the TV station comes up and then it's on. It wasn't like, oh, this is on channel 1, this is on channel 2. It was sort of a kind of an unknown concept for us.
Well, in the U.S., we have, back in the day, we had UHF and VHF, which were two bands. And I'm sure you probably had something equivalent to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the same thing, too. I remember sets that had 2 knobs.
What is Australia? Was that NTSC or was that PAL?
PAL,
okay.
The worst.
PAL 50.
50.
But you had SCART. Though.
I did have a lot of SCART.
No, but so, yeah, it really a channel, it's a misnomer. Because when you put a CRT on a channel, it's really just a band of radio frequencies. It's a range. It's anywhere from this range to this range, and then you go down from channel 3 to channel 4, and it's this range from this range. And your TV is kind of doing the rest of the work to kind of fine-tune or dial in what the actual frequency is of whatever's being output to you, whether it's a broadcast over the air or whether it's an Atari or a Nintendo or whatever. And some televisions, like I'm looking at my Sony KV1217, it's an old set. It's from 1980, but it's got a really advanced feature where you can just hit an auto-tune button, and if you're on channel 3, it'll seek whatever the frequency is that's coming towards the television, and then it'll kind of optimize the broadcast. Because all it is, it's just a radio broadcast. Like, it's giving you video and audio through a radio frequency, which is pretty incredible that they were even able to accomplish that back then. So with the Famicom, this is a poor example, but it's funny because I was setting up like where I'm going to do B-roll. So this is I don't know if you can see it. So this is a Famicom motherboard. Now this is a later revision, and the way you could tell is because you have the main motherboard with the PPU and the CPU and all that stuff. This is the power supply and the RF unit, and it's hard soldered to the motherboard itself. A lot of lead on that motherboard too, I should add. So inside of this is where the actual RF unit is. Now, if I were to take this off on earlier models, earlier motherboards, you'll actually see it's a little green potentiometer. And if you've got a trimming device, a little plastic screwdriver, you could just put it in there, and you could actually adjust the output frequency of the video and the audio. So, Famicom, you're stuck on channel 1, channel 2 in Japan, which translates loosely approximately to channel 95 or 96 in the States. I don't know what it would be for PAL. So if you have a cable-ready television, something made in like the late 80s up through, you get those big silver Wega Trinitrons, you should be able to tune to channel 95 or 96 no problem. And you can plug it in. But if you're a weirdo like me and you got to have a wood-grained CRT from 1980, you don't have that luxury because your channels only go up to like 12. So you could actually fine-tune that output to where it's outputting what's close to the frequency of US channel 6. And if you get it just right, if you have your CRT set to channel 6, you'll start to see an image. And then for me, I just hit that fine-tune button, and it looks like composite. I mean, it looks really nice.
It does.
Yeah, it turned out really great. So that's a little trick. I'll give him a plug. It's Displaced Gamers is the YouTube channel. The guy there is fantastic. He does a lot of cool stuff about coding. He does a lot of cool stuff about just like the development of games and weird technologies behind them. And he had a really cool video about the differences between games loading on the Famicom disk system and then when they were brought to the States or to Australia even, and their cart conversions, what the differences were between the two. It's just real fascinating stuff. He doesn't get enough love. I think he should have a lot more followers. So
he does. Steve's a friend of his, and
no kidding,
several times. So
okay.
We've been trying to get it to work out so for him to come on the channel and talk about it. I love his stuff.
Yeah.
I know these days. I think he's focusing on those Famicom breakdowns where he's behind the code. Sorry, what he calls analyzing how Famicom games work. I really enjoyed the OG series where he explained Chroma and Luma, where he explained RGB, where he explained that real. I understand that wasn't maybe getting as much love, but I love what is 240p and so forth. So I really like Displaced Games.
That's a really good video. I do like. I've seen that one too. He does great work. It's probably one of my favorite channels. So
there's sort of videos that I watch several times. Like I watch now, and then I watched a year ago, and then watch now, and what I've learned about analog video, I appreciate more of it, understanding more of it. Yeah,
well, because especially for folks like me who are complete morons, and you just get a idea. Well, I didn't know what does it mean to be 60 hertz? What exactly is that? So he dumbs it down for numbskulls like me, which is great. But
so I think good RF is as good as composite, right? It is like it is meant to be, and it looks that way and looks good, like good solid RF all in your place without electrical interference in the big city interfering with it or something like that. So that's a real nice solution. I just don't have anything here that can accept RF. I'd need one of those little tuners or something like that. So I'm going down, because for me, what I've been doing over the weekend is I got the N64 out, and I haven't had this out in years. Now, this one's been RGB modded with Voltar's mod.
Yeah.
So there's something about N64 models to understand. A lot of people talk about the N64 digital or the N64 RGB mod. Now, there's an easy mod and a hard mod. And most people in the US may be aware of the hard mod. That's Tim Worthington's one, and it involves flex cables, it involves fine pitch soldering, and is quite a bit more expensive as well because of the models that you generally had in the US. The models that were released in Japan are a different revision, and all of the Japanese N64s can take the easy N64 mod.
So you're just saying the easy is it doesn't have the flex cables. It's a less time-consuming modification.
Yeah, I'm just bringing up Voltar's mod shop right now, DIY mod kits, because here it is. So yeah, the pardon me, let me go back. Where's Roger? There's Roger. So the one that most US people have to use on US consoles, there's flex cable. It's quite. I mean, it's not hard, but it's certainly not quite beginner.
Right.
And with the cost of the kit and your N64, you don't want to be screwing with that first time. But the easy one is akin to a Super Nintendo FX, something similar, like a small board. I want to say like a triple bypass, but with less pins. It's basically you're finding RGB and S are basically exposed on the motherboard. And so you're connecting to RGB and S on the motherboard, maybe removing a small little resistor or something like that, and then it's done. And it's so easy. I was able to do it. I've done this one to my N64. There's the similar one to the Super Nintendo. I think I did that on my SNES Junior to restore all that functionality.
That's nice. Well, do you notice...
So
do you play your N64? How do you primarily play it? On your BVM, then?
So, yeah, I haven't played it for years and years and years and years.
Right.
And
because it sucks.
I got my N64
because
out.
It sucks. Let's be clear. The Nintendo 64 sucks. However, if you'd like to take it out every once in a while for the novelty, go ahead.
Sure. It's like me in the nightclub. I take it out every so often for the novelty.
You're not married. You're not allowed to say that.
True. So what... now, I just want to... Before I claim facts, I think that the N64 mod also repairs... Well, how to say? Improves composite. So I just wanted to double-check that on Voltar's website. I'm going down... I'm pretty sure what it's doing is also fixing composite as well. And it's using the onboard THS chip to actually produce new composite directly from RGB.
Oh, really? Okay.
Rather than taking the original composite that was coming out of the N64. So then I'm like, all right, I'm going to play this fucker. And then I realized I don't have an N64 RGB cable. I don't know where. I have one somewhere. Who knows where it is? My options were either I did buy the N64 or multi-out JP21 cable when I was in Japan.
Right.
And I found it pretty cheap, only like $25. It felt too cheap. It's real and from a real store, but it's just maybe too obscure. And I found it in Osaka, so like a smaller place. And one thing I'm going to try and do is just rewire that cable.
Yeah.
Because JP21 and SCART, they're electrically the same.
Right.
And it's basically just not even soldering. It's pulling out pins and pushing them back into a different spot on the SCART board.
Yeah, that should be easy for you to do. I could probably do that.
Yeah. Any monkey could do it.
That's right.
And so I was going to do that, but I didn't have time for that. And maybe I was high, so I wasn't going to try that. So I found... Who knows? Who can say? I found the old composite cable, the good old-fashioned Nintendo branded original yellow with red and white cables on it. And so I've got an N64 modded with RGB, which I'm fairly sure is redoing composite, so it's great, as good as composite can be. Then I'm displaying it on, humble brag, my 20-inch BVM.
Yes, of course.
So that's looking lovely. But in the middle, I'm using composite. And what I found is it looks really good. Really, really good. And because the composite is just ever so gently blending down the colors. And that's particularly important on the original N64 3D games. They're a bit rough around the edges sometimes. And composite is just nicely smoothing everything over. The BVM still looks real sharp. The composite originally is quite good. And I don't think I need to go back to RGB, actually. It might all be, well, at least for 3D games. Composite is real nice.
You're just racing a Ferrari in a parking lot. You're it's like a composite in a BVM. Like you have this sophisticated piece of professional video equipment, and he plugs in a fucking composite cable, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, that's fucking right." It's
where it's at.
This is where it's at. Bloody hell! That's the thing is with the Nintendo 64, I've learned, I think everybody should go buy Voltar's products. Whatever, go crazy, give him a lot of money, but not too much because he lives in Kentucky. And people in Kentucky can't make that much money. That's an inside joke, sorry. S-Video from an N64 is fine. Especially if you're playing on a CRT. Any just shitty consumer CRT, S-Video looks awesome from an N64. And even, I remember when the RetroTink 5X first came out, everybody was just plugging in their stock N64 through S-Video and doing side-by-sides with the... Pixel FX's whatever it's called, N64 digital.
Yeah.
That wasn't out yet. It was just the Ultra HDMI, which they're roughly the same. It's the same mod, really. It's just Pixel FX has done a couple different things to it, but they were doing the side by side over a flat screen on S Video, and it looked pretty indistinguishable. You're just like, well, I mean, it's the N64, so shit in, shit out. I mean, it's just like, it just fucking sucks. So, you know, you can only put so much lipstick on that pig, but, you know, but it still looks pretty good. But even RGB, I've noticed, especially if you put it on a PVM or a BVM, like, it looks really vibrant and sharp with RGB. So, yeah, man, give it a whirl. Repin that JP21. And that's an OEM JP21 you found.
Yeah,
right?
it's an OEM. I have another one. I have a retro gaming cable somewhere in the.
They're fine.
In the storage somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll find it. But also, if I rewire the JP21, it's at least in theory, it's reversible. It's not a one-way kind of thing. I'm not damaging this original thing, and I'm actually making it useful. Because, I mean, you've got a large collection behind you. I've got a large collection behind me. But, I mean, what are we going to do? Stick a cable on the wall and be like, oh,
no.
Wow, I remember where I bought this cable? You should maybe try and use cables.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, I'm going to preserve the integrity of my JP21. What do you... I don't have a single JP21 port anywhere in this room. So
no, neither do I.
What do I care?
The other thing I was going to try is I've got a whole bunch of extra SCART cables at home. So the other thing I was going to try was maybe just rewiring one. So in using it, like you could use it as a converter essentially.
Right.
If you just took a plain old SCART cable,
that's a good idea,
and then it would be an adapter.
Yeah.
But then you got an extra cable on the end, and you know all sorts of stuff. So
whatever.
And you can buy them as well. I think it's Video Games Perfection. Sells little chody little adapters like that, and other vendors. They were only like $20, but shipping to communist Europe is always too much for me. So I'm a true member of the Soviet Union. I don't want to pay. I could buy it from capitalistic Amazon, or I could make it myself in salt mine. Because it is hard to get products.
That's
Have
very.
you seen Levi jeans? I have new Levi's.
They are called Levinsky. Yes. Did you say chody? What is chody?
Oh, maybe it's an Australian thing.
That is.
Chode the bit underneath your asshole.
That's a taint.
No?
That's a taint.
Oh, that's a taint.
It's a taint. You're talking about the flap of the skin between your asshole and your ball sack. That's a taint. That's what they...
Oh, it's even on dictionary.com. Chode, a penis, especially one characterized as being short and thick.
No, chode, I get. Chode, that's in the vernacular, my friend. But chody... Chody.
Yeah, chody.
Okay, all right.
Of
so
being like a chode.
Okay. Exhibiting behavior of a chode. I got it. All right, yeah.
And exactly, because I was saying a short little SCART adapter, it's no doubt going to have a thick cable on it, because it's a good one, and it's going to be short, so it's chody.
I have to get into a very important topic that I've been meaning to discuss with you, Lewis. It's very, very relevant to the Cathode Ray Podcast. So, when you're in Japan, the Japanese are known for being very, very, very clean people. Everything is just pristine, right? It's just very antiseptic. It's just everything is just so clean. This includes their bathrooms. So tell me about their bathrooms, because in us, the United States, everybody with our dirty assholes, the Japanese are shown in media as having like these really sophisticated toilet technologies with like multiple buttons everywhere that scrub and shoot jets of water up your ass and just make sure everything is clean down there. So was that your experience? Did you have those in your travels?
Yes. Japan certainly has those techno toilets, and it's something they've been known for a million years. They've had this. Japan toilets, to me, are weird, not just because of the techno toilet, and there can be varying states of techno toilet. You can have one with all the bells and whistles and everything, and some just have a few buttons. Like, even the idea that a toilet has electricity somewhere in its use case is a different thing for a Westerner.
Little scary.
We don't even have that. But Japanese toilets are one of two things. They're either the Star Trek Enterprise with buttons and need a manual or something like that, or they're completely the opposite and they're literally a hole in the ground.
Wait a minute.
Traditional Japanese toilets are the squat pit. And it's like so you can
no lever, no plumbing, no nothing.
No plumbing. I mean,
Wow.
maybe there is. There might be a little water that trickles down to take it away, but it's a long, thin pit, and you squat over it style. And they're kind of typically referred to as traditional Japanese toilets.
Okay.
And it's always still... Look, I'm not sure many Japanese people use them, but there's always a bit of like, oh, you Westerners, you've got to use your Western toilets.
Yeah.
I'm like...
This is the shit you're used to. Go ahead. Just squat in the hole and, just do your business.
So a typical cubicle section may have one normal one. Like, normal. I mean, who says? I mean... look, a nicer place will just have all regular ones. But you could often have one squat pit at one end, and then the rest are regular toilets. So you see both of those, but I don't know how to use the Techno toilet. So what you end up doing is maybe the toilet has signs on it, like little translations. Someone's used a Dymo or something
nice.
to print out that.
Okay.
If you're in some sort of tourist establishment.
Sure.
Or you end up with your phone using Google Translate app, and you're on the toilet trying to...
I mean, you're taking a shit, right? So you got your phone out anyways. So you're already... You're like, while I'm here, I'm going to... This character, I'm not sure what the... Oh, that's the brush. I don't want the brush. Okay, I want the jet. Do I want the chime? Yeah, let's go with the why not?
Do you have okay, my question back to you, Roger, about American toilets is all I hear about is how great bidets are, the little spray.
Oh, we don't have them. We don't. Do you have them in your little post-Soviet country there? Do you have
no? So maybe there was a weird time in how to say, when I go into a bathroom of an Estonian or let's say any post-Soviet country's place, there was a weird time in the 90s. It was free, right? Soviet Union's gone, fucking Boris is on the tanks, and it's new freedom.
Right.
And people wanted the little luxuries.
Mm-hmm.
That they didn't have a lot of money, but they wanted and one of the ways they got little luxuries, which helped me, was they bought a lot of fancy CRTs.
Right.
Which is why so many were available and why HDs were available, because that's like an affordable luxury you could buy in a few years. Well, once things recovered, you could get. Secondly, was bathrooms. So I've seen weird over-the-top toilets. I've seen big spa enclosures in this fucking Soviet Union Khrushchevsky apartment. These big chambers that have jets coming out from multiple angles. And none of them work. Nobody ever uses them. But it was something, it was this sort of hip luxury back in the 90s for Estonian people. So what have you guys got? You don't have bidets? Because all I hear about America are bidets.
No, see, that's just it. There was some construction baron at some point during the age of the technological revolution, whatever, the early 20th century, that decided it is cost inefficient to put bidets in American bathrooms. And to my chagrin, I wish we had bidets, because I think the thought process is wonderful, right? You do your business and then you hit another button and it cleans it out. Like, that's the way it should be. Instead, let's just waste paper, and then you got to jam it in there, and you gotta clean it out, and it's never quite clean, and it's just more to oh fuck, now my skin is all chapped and tender, and it's now I'm in pain the rest of the day. Like, every American you see, Lewis, has a filthy asshole. Okay, I'm serious. I would not shake a single American's hand, because there is not enough lava soap out there that is gritty enough to scrape all of that shit off of their hands. Whereas, I talk to some of my European friends, and they're like, bidets are... Yeah, that's just... I can't remember ever having a period of time without a bidet. And it's just literally like a 2x3 footprint in your bathroom, just one more thing, and then you kind of move over and you have yourself a little party. Like,
so that's a so let's get into the intricacies of the bidet. So that's a separate one.
Traditionally,
right?
It's a separate one. Now they sell the 2-in-1 combo. Well, now they sell. Who knows? They could have had it for decades now. But sure. Yes, there's the 2-in-1 combo. It requires an extra pipe that goes in. You hit the button, it gives you a little party, and you're good to go. But yeah, I think
is that I see sometimes there's a little like hand thing that looks like it could be the shower or something, but it's on the top. Is that it? And you're supposed to underneath yourself?
Oh, that's...
Or is the bidet where you sit down and somehow...
No, that's hardcore. I don't know about the shower head. Like, that to me is... You're into some freaky, kinky stuff. Like, that's crazy. My understanding is it's literally just the jet underneath the bowl, and you just hit the button, and it just shoots right up in the, you know, the tea and biscuits, and it just, you know, flushes it all out. And then you're, like, cleansed.
Does it... Okay, here's my concerns. I've never used one, and I have concerns. Help me with this.
What
First
concerns are there? It's...
Aiming.
No, it's a...
Like, is it...
Dude,
what if it misses?
What do you have? Do you have the world's smallest ass? I mean...
Well, my next question is, do you have to pull them apart to make sure that... Or you kind of sit in that to make sure they're...
No.
Wow. It's like in Star Wars where they try to break through and the deflector shield is up and the biz can't get through the shields.
Right, and then you have like a smattering of brown liquid has just made its way to the floor, and you're like, ah, fuck, you know. But no, I just think it's it's like a it's just a little thing you squat over and you hit the button, and it, you know, if you're an average adult, you have enough real estate there to cover the stuff, and you just there's probably a bunch of European people watching this going, these two fucking idiots, listen to these guys.
You don't know nothing.
These fucking monkeys.
And after okay, let's say the spraying process is successful.
Yeah.
Number one, like, really everything comes off with water? I guess so. I mean,
have you taken a shower, Lewis? Yes, it does.
Well, but then with your Okay, second, if it's wet...
I'm concerned about your asshole. Do you actually clean over there?
Do you got to do a drying step as well? Don't you? Like, then your bum is wet. Don't you then have to dry it with a bit of water too?
Well, I think that's where the toilet... Paper? Well, I think that's where the toilet paper comes in. I mean, it's already there. Okay. You know, you just take that, and you probably dab it, and it's not like a lot of water. I don't know. This is all conjecture on my part, all right? I've seen pictures of it. I go, I want that. And because we've redone one bathroom... I want to redo the other bathroom, and I want to figure out how to get a bidet in the process. I'm obsessed with bidets. If you couldn't tell, like
I imagine the toilet store, just wherever you go, the house furnishings fitting, bathroom fittings place will have options.
Oh yeah, I would think so. I mean, and you want to talk about luxury? Like, Americans look at that and they go, "Oh wow, you clean your ass with water. That's fucking amazing, man."
It's one of the things, like having an ice maker in your fridge that to me always seems like a luxury. Now I've made it.
Wow, you really made it. I don't know. I just assumed they were everywhere in Japan, just because Japanese people are so clean, like everything.
I think they are, but I wouldn't, like, I just want to know the button to flush, and that's it. I don't need to know the rest of the programming language. I don't need to learn C# or whatever the fuck to run this toilet. I just want to, I'm going to get a whole bunch of that paper, because also Japan has, I've noticed, again, on extremes, their toilet paper is either soft like tissue paper that crumples in a large, fumbly Western hand, or sandpaper. Right. One of the two. So I got a big...
So what I'm learning about Japan is that there's no moderation in Japan. You just have the two extremes. That's it.
That is an excellent way, I think, to describe their society. You might even say, and I'll go way off on the cultural deep end here, why do they have all these dudes, salarymen, who go out, get fucking shit-faced drunk and sleep in the whatever and all of that, but then they're known as being a conservative society, more inward, more polite, certainly. So I think, and then why do they love tentacle porn? I don't know, you said that, not me. So they like these extremes, and we're human beings. Whenever you repress yourself a little bit, you need an outlet, and I think they like extremes. So I'm good with extremes.
What the fuck were you watching while you're in Japan? What is tentacle porn? Oh, you just thought I'd just let that go by?
Yeah, I thought it was a thing. I thought everyone had watched it.
I swear, I just clicked on it. I was curious. I don't know.
I don't know.
Octopus and a gangbang. It's weird. I don't know.
All right. Since we need to move along.
Sorry.
You've got to go do your day job. You've got things to do, criminals to prosecute.
No, I don't do that kind of shit. But
all that sort of stuff. Let's talk about MSX for the next 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
A lot of sheds.
You're only going to give me 20 minutes on the MSX?
Oh, we got more? No, we have, whatever, till the top of the hour, 25.
No, MSX. So
where did it start? So Roger loves the MSX. I was in Japan finding all sorts of MSX stuff for him, but
well, no.
Where did it start for you?
So you actually, it's your fault. I'm going to blame it all on you. You sent me a DM. You say, "Hey man, I'm going out to Japan. Is there anything you want me to look for you?" And at that point, I was Famicom'd out because I went through my Famicom rabbit hole. I bought the Famicom. I bought the disc system. I bought the 8 or so disc games I wanted. I had a few loose carts that I wanted. And I'm like, I think I'm good on Famicom. I'm out of space. But then I'm like, fuck, man, I've always wanted an MSX, and MSX would be awesome. So, and MSX computers, and MSX is not a brand. It is a standard, much like HDMI is a standard, SCART is a standard. MSX is a byproduct of the ASCII Corporation of Japan and Microsoft getting together to figure out a way to standardize home computers in Japan in the 80s, because at that point it was the Wild West. You had NEC making computers, you had Sharp making computers, you had the FM Towns computers, and all of these electronics firms were like, fuck, I want to get into the PC making business. But the problem is we all make our own operating systems, we all make our own software, and it's very fragmented. So Microsoft, of course, being the big global capitalist Satan that it is, decided, hey, let's standardize this so you all have to buy our software. And so they created the MSX computer with ASCII Corp. And so everybody signed on. All the big Japanese firms signed on. Like, Sony, Panasonic, you name it, they created it. So MSX computers... Yeah, it's a pretty basic 8-bit computer. Very, folks in the West, you had the ZX Spectrum, you had, Commodore, you had all of those computers. I think the original MSX wasn't quite up to snuff with those, but with the MSX2, you had 64 kilobytes of RAM, you had upgraded CPU power. It could run pretty proper games, pretty good games. So I always wanted an MSX2. So I sent you on a wild goose chase, and I said, Lewis, go find me a nice MSX2. And I wanted a Sony one because, to me, having Microsoft software in a Sony shell is funny. So, I just wanted that. So I guess I can go grab it. Here, let me go. Give me a second.
Yeah, go grab it. So I guess we could compare the MSX licensing to like 3DO, the way there was a company who made a standard. Or, I guess in IBM, they made the x86, is the way in the West we typically standardized on those things. Oh, you can see there through that Roger's got his early Nintendo, the big orange thing in the background, which is the Nintendo game system. It's like a Pong thing
All
or
right.
something. Okay, here we go.
Grab some software too, why not? So the thing about the MSX, which you discovered while you're in Japan, is some of them are fucking big. Like they're heavy too. So this is
got the keyboard built in, so it's
yeah.
hefty.
Well, especially
kind of harking back to the Amiga style, but the Amiga 500 that had that very similar.
Yep, very similar to the Amiga. It's got the 10 key on the side. You probably can't even pick this up, but this is the Sony F1XV. This was actually the last MSX computer that Sony ever manufactured. It's actually an MSX2 Plus, which upgraded the, I want to say the VDP. And it's a beautiful computer. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. I've had it recapped. I had the floppy drive looked at. That was still...
So it's got floppy and cart inputs.
Correct, yeah. It actually has 2 cart inputs. So there's a cart input here.
What's the use of that? Is it just why?
So,
why 2?
Because a lot of manufacturers put out, additional RAM carts, FM carts. So you could pop in your game and then also have additional RAM support. Like some games, like Metal Gear 2, required that additional RAM or it just wouldn't run. So, or if you had a floppy disk game, a Konami, of course, if you know anything about the Nintendo. Konami is always putting extra sound chips and shit. They want their games to be bigger and badder than all of the other games. So Konami had an additional sound cartridge that you could put into the MSX computer and then also run a floppy disk. So their version of Snatcher on the MSX if you put in that sound cartridge plus the disc, you're having a much improved audio over what you would get over a standard MSX. So, and honestly, if it wasn't for Konami, nobody would give two shits about the MSX today, right? I mean, but Konami was the biggest developer for it.
Sure.
They were.
I saw when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, they developed for the MSX long before they started developing for the NES. So, I picked up a box copy of Metal Gear. I won't say how much I spent on that, but some of the, just like for historical reasons, like this is one of their earlier. This is a game called Nightmare. It had a trilogy. This is one of Konami's long list of forgotten IPs that they really should resurrect. And it's just like a standard shooter. And they would kind of slide out like a VHS tape.
Cool. A big box, like back in the day, a big box.
Yeah, and it would just slide out. And you got the manual there, and then whoops. And then, you've seen these cartridges all over the place.
Sure.
So
a few things. MSX2, were there carts for MSX2 or only floppies?
Both. And that's...
Like how to say games. Okay.
So this is really the problem with MSX, is their games came in a wide range of software. So there was cassette tapes, for like the ZX. There's floppies. There's cartridges. And so you have all these different ways to play the games. And some games like Snatcher required both, like the cartridge and the disc. So the problem becomes, how do you emulate all that shit? And the thought process is, I'll just create a flash cart. But the flash cart also has to work with the operating system of the MSX, which is MSX Basic, which I don't know anything about programming, but people who do know things about programming have told me it is a more difficult or a stupid version of Basic, and or a more closed version of Basic, I guess. And so trying to figure out an FPGA-based flash cart to run all of those different types of software, like the cartridge and the floppies and the cassettes, it is kind of a tall task. I'm sure there's some very gifted individual out there who could figure it all out, but there are flash carts available. I have one, but they're not very user-friendly. Like, you've got to understand some basic coding to make certain types of games run, and that's kind of the rub with it right now. But basic
so you have to have carts. So you've got the main things. I mean, tape, okay, let's leave to the side. But you've got game carts, you've got add-on carts, and you've got floppy disks that could have games. So it's almost like each one of those things needs its own solution for that. Flash cart could be flash carts. I know you can get MSX add-on modern-day reproductions of that. I've seen some of those floating around, modern-day reproductions of the add-on cards. And then the floppy drive, I mean, that's the hardest one.
Right.
You'd have to sort of unplug the whole floppy drive and put some sort of SD card-based solution that you use maybe for Amiga or something like that. Right. So, yeah, you're sort of up for three things rather than one.
Well, it's not just three. So, you know what? I'll show you my flash cart that I got. Give me a second.
So, yeah, I spent a lot of time looking for MSXs.
Okay, so kind of the most recent flash cart is the Carnivore 2.
Carnivore 2, nice.
It's made by the Russian Bear. What is it? RBSC. I can't remember what that stands for. But anyways, it's an open source project. It was developed in Russia. Carnivore 2. So this supports. I gotta put my glasses on. I can't fucking see. This supports SCC Plus, which is the Konami cartridge, the sound cartridge. FM Pack, which is FM synthesizer music. It adds PSG music. It adds flash ROM, IDE reading support for your floppies and things like that, and additional RAM. So it's doing all of that stuff. The problem is, if you have it all going at once, it causes conflicts with some games. Like for example, if I'm running this to operate with the FM synth, some games that so the MSX2 Plus has an FM chip on the motherboard. If I run FM through this, it causes a conflict. So some FM games sound like complete shit. All you hear is just static. So you got to figure out a way. Okay, now I have to trick the cart into disabling this feature from the FPGA so I can actually run the game properly. So it's just little nuances like that make it it's not like it
What
ever.
about, let's say, you said the Konami example, where you could have the add-on cart, and then the game... was the game coming from another cart or from the disc? In, say, Konami?
Both.
Both.
So yeah. So because Konami mostly made carts. On rare occasion, they had disc-based games too. I think they had like some compilation games, Snatchers, the big example, where it would take the SC for most of the time the SEC chip would just be put on the cartridge, so it's very easy. You just pop the cartridge in. It's just like an NES game. You pop the cartridge in and it plays. But yeah, when you start getting into two formats, that's when it becomes kind of a headache when you start using this flash card.
I can imagine there might be like a bus conflicts or something at a low level, because if something was meant to be two carts or a cart and a floppy disk, and then all of a sudden it's coming off the one thing, I can imagine that the system may not particularly like that.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And then you're like, okay, well, I'll figure out a solution. Well, okay, I'm going to go on the internet and look for a solution. Oh, wait, everybody in English-speaking countries never used an MSX, so all of these instructions are in Portuguese or Russian or Japanese. So it's like, fuck! What do I do? So, like, I mean, Tian Fang on Twitter, like, he and I have been just DMing each other about this, like, hey, so what do you do with your MSX on this? And he's like, I'm fucking sick of this thing. It's just so I think there's a Mr. Core, coming back to Mr. I think there's a Mr. Core being released for the MSX that is apparently extremely user-friendly. And you could just load up the core, and then you can choose what options you want on the core, and then just play it. I'll do a video on
it was in progress. Do you know, has there been progress on that recently? I looked at maybe a year ago.
I watched a video recently. I can't remember the guy's name. The guy from Giant Bomb. He just did it was about a month ago. He did a video, and I think it's in beta, of the Mr. Core, and he was running shit left and right. Now, it was all cartridge based, but so I'm curious to see how it handles all those different formats like cassette and floppy. But he seemed to have a really easy experience, and and not to promote my upcoming channel, but that's going to be the gist of my channel. Is I'm going to put all of this hardware, all of this software on trial, and I'm going to, okay, here it is. This is why it's great. This is the context. This is why you might want to acquire this. Here are the pros. Here are the cons. This is how much it costs. Factoring all that in, this is how easy it is to emulate it. And this is how well it performs in emulation. So let's make a decision. Should you just emulate it, or should you just buy it? And because it's 2023, I've acquired most of my collection in the last 10, 15 years. Like, back then, shit was cheap. Now it's not. So if you were just getting into game collecting today, I would have a fraction of the shit that I have. I would just buy a Mister and just call it a day, because emulation has gotten so good. And for MSX, as much as I love this computer, like, I think it looks awesome. It just is. You're taken back to a different world at a different time playing this shit. I think I'd still rather just emulate it. Like, it's just less of a headache. And there's tons of software-based MSX emulators out there. You can just pop it open in Windows and it runs great. So anyways.
I struggle, for that sort of reason with the current prices, that's why I don't really collect games.
Right.
I do a bit. If I like the game, sure, I'm going to have it. As long as it's not a crate, $50, I don't think I'm just going to buy it. And I know a lot of people are games collectors, but if you're sort of on the hardware side, you got flash cards, maybe let's say even a flash card. So you're still playing it on some sort of realm of real hardware, or maybe I'm using an old mod chip on my Saturn, so I'm still burning discs on my Saturn like it's the year 2000. But it's some level of realness happening there. If I can already play that, let's say I burn the disc on my Saturn, I can play it. Some level of realness, I struggle to spend 50, 80, 100 on some game just to say I have it. I mean,
dude, $50, you're locked out of like 80% of the Saturn's library. Like, you can't, like, Saturn's insane. Even in Japan. I mean, you've seen you were just there. I mean, what are the prices going for in Japan on the Saturn for all the software?
Yeah. So anything, especially anything shmup, anything I might be interested in. So I really struggle to think like, oh, I want to buy that game so I can play it when I can already play it on. And actually, this is getting into I have a sort of similar idea for a video that I'm going to produce soon, which is how many levels of emulation are we using? So if you just emulate something on the computer, fair enough. We understand that's emulation.
Right.
So what if you use a flash card? Some people are cool with that. We don't need the game, but I'm playing on original hardware. Some people, like I was saying, I want to burn a CD, and that's fine for my Dreamcast and for my Saturn. I'm cool with that. I don't have to spend $100 on a ODE. I know it's not much, but I can also burn some CDs.
It's $100. That could be a lot of money for some people.
$100.
Yeah.
So how many parts of the system do you emulate? And I was thinking about that when it comes to Famicom disk system. Because my video is going to be why I didn't buy a twin Famicom, even though I know they were so shit cheap, 60 kind of really shit cheap.
Right.
But what I doing is if you use that FDS stick, the small little dongle called the FDS stick can emulate the red box of that. So I've got this solution which is essentially 2/3 real hardware, 1/3 emulated.
Right.
The real hardware is the Famicom. That's real. The second bit of real hardware is that black adapter that sits over the top, plugs it in the cartridge port.
Right.
And the third part, which is meant to be the big old red disk drive, the bit that always fails, the bit that has belt problems and configuration problems, that's what you can emulate.
And it's a pain in the ass to fix. Oh, my gosh.
Pain, dude. I have 2 of those red boxes that I brought. Like now they're kind of a bit expensive, but I got them years and years ago. One I tried to fix. One I did pull apart the drive. I got the new belts in there. Tried to repair that. Could not get it working. For as much as I tried, I could not make that work. And I can't now even reassemble the bloody thing because it's so fiddly to get into, and I kind of gave up. I have a second one that is untouched that maybe one day I have the skill and capabilities to be able to fix. I knew if I pull that one apart, I'm also never going to put it back together either.
I'll send you a YouTube video because I got a little adventurous when I was on Japanese web auctions, and I was like, oh fuck, I could get a disk drive for like $15. It's broken. How hard is it to fix? All right, I'll go in, and I found a YouTube video that made it seem pretty easy to fix. So I'll send it to you, and the guy was like, this is 100% success rate. Other videos will have you do these additional 25 steps. You don't have to do that shit. All you need is a little IPA on these little areas, and you got to twist this belt to here. You got to do that. And I was like, yeah, I could do this. And then I got it. I opened it up, and I was like, fuck this. So I was like, all right, how much for a working one? Okay, $75. All right, I could stomach that. All right, and I got it. And then I get it, and I'm like, well, I don't want to use it because I don't want the belt to break. So I'm never going to use it. Fuck. And then you find the FDS stick or whatever it's called, the Famicom disk stick.
FDS stick.
Yeah. And God, that thing's a lifesaver for $30. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. So yeah,
and the black cartridge thing. I mean, I was still finding a few of them around for about 500 yen, or maybe you're going to pay or shipped or something, maybe 10, 15, 20, 30. I don't know.
Are you talking about the RAM expansion card?
The RAM expansion card.
Oh yeah, those are cheap. Those are very cheap.
Those are still pretty cheap as well. So you can get two-thirds of the way to real hardware with that. And for me, that was my line. I was like, I'm good. I don't need to screw around for days and days fixing a Famicom disk system box. And I didn't buy one. Again, I could have just bought one for about $80 with a replaced belt, but I went, because then if I spend $80 on the Famicom disk system box, gotta buy some discs.
Yeah, man.
Then I'm gonna have to buy games as well, and sometimes I struggle.
And some of those games aren't cheap either, man. Like, oh god. I mean, I bought about 8 of them. I've got Castlevania, I got Zelda 2. And for me, here, we got a couple minutes. Let me grab one.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Like for me, it's just, does it look cool on a shelf? And if somebody who has even just a elementary level of understanding of video games would recognize it, like you would just see this Castlevania, and you would just go, "Fuck, man, that looks cool." And you got to get it complete with the manual and the disc, and it's. I'm like you now. I don't like wasting a ton of money on software because it's like I could just emulate this shit for cheap. And even the FTS disc or the FTS stick. Okay, yeah, you can go through that whole process, but I could also just turn on the mister and just hit 3 things and I'm there. So it makes it so much. It's hard to justify the cost, and I look forward to that video of yours because it's a real philosophical. I really want to play on real hardware, but it's really expensive. It's a real pain in the ass. God, Mister's really good.
I mean, there's loads of that stuff coming out now, like let's say the Crix RGB blaster for the Famicom. I mean, that's kind of using an FPGA inside to reconstruct the. So how do you then you all just have to make your own choice. How OG do I really want to be? Is the RGB blaster, well, it's using an FPGA to create a new RGB signal, so this is not the way that small little Japanese kid would have played, or you're just like, I'm cool, I got this nice thing in front of me.
Or, in the alternative, you have to open up the shell. You've got to modify the shell to put in that composite modification. You've got to put in an additional board to get RGB out. So is it really original? But at least with the RGB blaster, it's original because all I'm doing is just putting it in the 60-pin cart and it's, So we're all hypocrites, but that's kind of, I don't know. I hate the Twitter discourse about emulation. Like emulation is some bad word. Emulation's awesome. Emulation makes it's just the quality of life is really how you. I mean, if you were to put, and I'll talk about this in my video, if you were to integrate the Famicom into your setup, you couldn't play the fucking thing. Not just because of not just because of RF, but because the controller length is like 18 inches. You can't fucking play the thing. Yeah. So Bob just put out an article that Mr. Add-ons just made that expansion port with the controllers, so you can plug in your NES controllers and the big fucking American controllers with the 91 inches of cord length. Yeah, America, fuck yeah. You could actually play that from your couch, So it's, man, you have to emulate. You got to modify because this shit's just not practical anymore. It's just not. And nobody's got the time, really.
I think what I'm looking for in these solutions these days is that's why I love controllers. Because to me, it's something that if I spend money on a controller, maybe a fight stick, maybe a weird controller, maybe it's still something I can hold in my hand, and it's something you can't emulate. It's something you can't just do. I can plug it into the Mister. Now I've got the Damon Byte adapters or Snack adapters if I want to go to that level. So I'm actually willing, I'd rather spend 50, 80, $100 on some weird controller, and I hold it, and to me, that's what triggers the nostalgia, I think, more than just having the game on the shelf.
You're 100% right, and that's what has kept me away from emulation for so long. Is I don't want to play this with a fucking Xbox controller. I don't. Sure. It's not. I can't play Super Mario Brothers with an Xbox controller. It's just off to me. If I were 20 and I didn't know any better, yeah, sure, fuck it, who cares? But yeah, I've had that experience with that NES controller in my hands, and it was awesome, and I want that again. So you're right. It's all about the controllers, man. It's
Now, usually I am. Actually, to wrap it back around to N64, before we head off. Now, usually I am. Usually I want to play on the real... For that same reason. This is the Nintendo controller. This is the whatever Super Nintendo controller.
Right.
I want to play on a period and system-specific controller. But what I had discovered with the Nintendo 64 is a lot of... Because it's early 3D. Early 3D has problems. It's got graphics problems. They don't age so well. And control problems. We still hadn't worked out... we don't have a modern first-person shooter.
Right.
That has yet to evolve yet. And I was playing all the driving games. And I really, really thought they were better using a modern stick. I was using the Retro Fighters, the Brawler original one or whatever it was, the first one, plugs in with a wire, and it's got a nice modern stick. It's tight, and I actually felt that helped the games a lot. And that's actually one instance, and maybe just racing games. There's still many games where the original Nintendo 64 is fine. Where also a blue retro adapter might also be a good solution there, so you can Bluetooth it to a modern controller. So it definitely pasted over some of the shortcomings of the N64 controls by using a more modern controller, but I'm quite specific about where I would use that.
So let's just sum it up. The N64 sucks. Everything about it sucked. The controller, the hardware, the video output, it sucked.
Sucks.
It's funny.
Deary me. All right, Roger, you gotta head off soon. You gotta go.
I gotta head off. I gotta do my thing. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm like the kid in the divorce, because Steve wanted me on his live stream, so I'll be on that. So look for me there. And one of these days I'll have my YouTube channel going, and we'll see you on there, my good friend.
Yeah, we're gonna be on there as well.
So I can't wait. That'll be fun.
Cool, guys. I'll end this. Stay on the line just for a second, Roger, but
Sure.
I'll end this. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you next time.